What's up everyone, this is Jono from Carta. So in this video I want to walk through a commentary of Lethality. This is the most recent single that we put out as part of Shards of Black, and we've been really stoked with the response, right? It's had a whole bunch of play on YouTube, lots of radio play, and people seem to really dig the song. So we thank you all of you for supporting the band, and we really appreciate it. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, I'm going to play the YouTube video, and then I'm going to share some of the commentary behind how the song's written, what it's about, how we produced it, all that kind of good stuff. All right, let's go. So this song is written about people who put their backsides on the line for science. You know, people who are testing new medicines out, people who are going into space, people who are working on experimental technology. And the reason why I wanted to write a song about this was because I think we've all become so sick of people being so politically divisive, right? Everyone's bickering online about, you know, which political leader that they support. And I was sick and tired of that. I really wanted to focus on who are the most important people in the world when it comes to moving our societies forward. And that's the reason why I wanted to write something about this. But there's a bit of a tension to it because, you know, many people who, when they're working in like experimental tech and medicine, whatever else, it can become addicted to the danger, and that's where we get to that a little bit later on in the song. So this was actually the first video that we put out there with all of us playing in it. One of the things that you might not know about Carta is that we have never met each other. I've never stood in the same room as Ralf. I've never stood in the same room as Morten. I don't even know if those guys have met each other. You know, I recorded all the guitars and the bass and, you know, did a whole bunch of the work on the song in this room, my studio. Ralf recorded all of his vocals in his studio. And then Morten, as you can see here, he was recording in a studio that Jacob Hansen runs, who produced our first two records. So we got individual footage with each of us playing, and then we kind of smashed it together with the main video that I had commissioned as well. So you can see kind of the theme in this video is this idea of like growing into the explorer role, like this kid who's clearly into space and wants to kind of go into space, and it kind of charts that journey. Like a little bit later in the song you see him going into space, and then you also see him like really struggling when he's in space and is in that kind of explorer role, and that kind of gets to the tension of the song, which is, you know, we commend these people for putting their lives on the line for science, but you know, it can be dangerous, and sometimes people can get addicted to that danger. You know, what's really interesting about working with Ralf is he's such a pro when it comes to the work that he does. I've mentioned this before, but most singers, when they go into a studio, they need a lot of production. Like they need an engineer who's going to say, do it again, do it again, do it again, make it better, better, better. But Ralf doesn't have any of that. He actually produces himself. So he doesn't just, you know, this is not him stood in somebody else's studio. This is him stood in his studio at his house. And he has set up all of the audio tool chain. And what was really interesting about recording this new one was that it's the first time we brought Mynett into the mix, where he produced us. And Mark is, if you ever listen to Kill to This, he's well known for Kill to This. That was his band. And it was the first time Mark and Ralf working together. It was the first time all of us working with Mark. So dialing in Ralf's vocal sound was going to be key. And Ralf is very opinionated in a very good way about his vocal sound, because he's perfected it from years and years and years of recording. And right at the beginning, we had a little bit of a bump in the road where Mark, I think, misunderstood some of what Ralf was looking for. And the very first mix of Lethality was actually, I think Ralf was a little concerned, and he shared his feedback, super polite about it. But then the second mix, Mark just dialed it in right away, and then just this blossoming relationship happened where we get this incredible Ralf Scheepers kind of production sound. But one thing to be very clear is Mark did a wonderful job mixing it, but the core of the sound is Ralf and how he recorded it. And you know, it's hard to take badly recorded material and make it sound good, to take really well recorded material and make it sound amazing. That's what happened here. So I think the production of his vocals sounds absolutely phenomenal in all of the songs in this record. The other thing as well, when it comes to Morten, with his drums, when I first started Baron Carter, and what happens is, when I write the songs, I program the drums, right? I use something called Superior Drummer, and I program the drums about how I think it would sound cool, and then I send it over to Morten, who then goes into the studio and records it, and usually records it over 2 days. And I was a little nervous at first because I was like, how is it going to sound? I'm not going to be in the studio saying, I think we should do it this way, I think we should do it this way. And I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to these things. What blew me away was just he nailed it immediately, right? Like the first mixes that Jacob sent over, and Jacob does all of the drum production on this, were just perfect. And I made it very clear to Morten and to Ralf, like, I want to make sure that this is your art too, that you get to record what you think would sound cool, that you don't have to slavishly stay to what I've produced in terms of the core content of the song. But Morten is just the perfect drummer for Baron Carter, because for me, what I was always looking for was kind of like a Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden, like somebody who can play really well, but doesn't overplay, but is completely, in the beat, and he just nails it. This is the hated life less free lyric, is a key one in the song, because, and you can see here these people presenting to an audience. The idea is that these explorers, people were born with this explorer, psychology, and you might have this, is that the regular world is boring to them. Going and speaking and working at a company is uninteresting to them because they need excitement, and that's kind of the core tension of the song. Flying to the unknown, a four-star melody. Push this envelope, blaze that trail, far ahead. So when I was recording this, for the guitarists among you, the way I record is that right over here, you can't see it, but right over here is an Axe FX3, and that's where I record all of my core guitars. And what was interesting about this particular production is, for the first 2 records, the guitar sound was everything that I'd put together. It was the Axe FX3 that I would, I'd record all the pieces, all the parts, and then I'd send it over to Jacob, and he would mix it. But when I started working with Mynett, who produced this new record, he said, like, what is your dream sound? Like, what do you want this to sound like when it comes to the guitars? And I said to him, I've always had this sound in mind. And what it is I love the sound of Cannibal Corpse. They've got this really low grind, and I love the sound of Nevermore. Especially there's an album called Dead Heart in a Dead World. I absolutely love that album. I was like, I really want to try and get that guitar sound. And at the beginning, Mark said very gingerly, well, we might want to consider reamping it. And I was a little put off by that, because I was like, I've spent, years dialing in my tone. I don't really want to reamp. But what happened was I sent all the guitars over, and he mixed it, and it sounded great. But then what happened was he said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you let me go and reamp a little bit of it and see what it sounds like? He went and reamped one of the songs. I think it was Lethality. And oh my God, it just sounded phenomenal. And just the guitar tone on this record is just, I'm so happy with it. I really, really dig it, because for me, it's got this like chainsaw grind to it with some real musicality to it. And that is exactly what I was looking for. And that's got nothing to do, it's me playing the guitars, but everything was completely reamped, which means that, Mark took my clean guitar sound from my actual guitar, and then he basically ran it through his own amps to get that tone and this really complicated signal chain. But I just think the guitar sound freaking awesome. This bit of the song that's about to happen right now, I'm a big fan of bridges. One of the things that people have commented on when they talk about Baron Carter is that a lot of our songs don't have a classic like verse chorus structure to it, and Lethality has a little bit more of that, right? There's an actual chorus. That's by design. I never want to get locked into any one way of writing songs, but I also don't want to write like 28-minute prog rock songs with a flute solo in it. So this is a little bit more of a classic rock song, but I wanted at this point in the song, like we're 1:29 in, I wanted to make sure that it kind of went somewhere and became really heavy and kind of mixed things up a little bit. So this is how it sounds. These like little bits that Ralf sings on this, I love it because he layers together like multiple vocals. That's the other thing that's been really fun about working with Ralf is, you know, I've been a fan of his work in Gamma Ray and Primal Fear for years, but hearing his isolated vocals sounds freaking awesome. It's so cool to like hear just the natural talent there. And you can tell like very little actual processing has gone into it. So what you're hearing in these little sections are multiple layers of Ralf kind of all coming together. Now this, what you're going to hear in just a second is like a little kind of guitar part. I'm a huge fan of Megadeth, and one of the things that Megadeth do all the time is they have these tiny little kind of guitar parts and guitar runs that kind of take you in a slightly different direction. It's the same thing with a band called Annihilator. Jeff Waters is just a manically good guitarist, and this was kind of my little ode to Megadeth and Annihilator. It's this bit. So solo-wise, I'm a very... my kind of solo style is very organized. Like when I write solos, I think they're very kind of thoughtful and well laid out, and I'm proud of that. But the problem with my solos is that they're a little too thoughtful and well laid out, and metal is not supposed to be thoughtful and well laid out. It's supposed to be crazy and, you know, maniacal and anarchic, right? So when I wrote the song, I knew that I wanted to have a fairly long solo section in it, and that's when I decided to reach out to my buddy Tom Draper, who at the time was playing in Carcass, and is just an amazing touring guitarist, and is an English guy who lives in the same town that I live in. And he recorded the second half of this solo, and I love the contrast. So when you listen to my solo here, it's again very kind of organized, and then Tom is just an absolute shredder, and it's very musical, but it's a little bit more exciting and different, and that's what I love about playing guitar with him. Here he comes. Now this next section, again, like, without wanting to kind of be too beholden to the verse, chorus, when we got to the end of the solos here, I thought, this needs to kind of build to something and then eventually revisit the chorus. I knew I wanted to get to the chorus, but I wasn't sure how to get to the chorus and what that was gonna what that was gonna mean. So that's when I had the idea of like, why don't I just like really slow it down and get grindy and grindy and grindy, and this can be an opportunity for Ralf to kind of build up his vocals. And it took me forever to write this section because I knew what I wanted, and this is the hardest bit and probably the most fun bit about writing music, is I knew what I wanted but I didn't know how to get there. And that was one of the reasons why it took me a while to kind of get to this section, but I'm happy how this bit came together. But the most important thing to listen to is the vocals, because it's Ralf who kind of takes us, the guitars are the same, it's Ralf who takes us step by step to where we're getting to.
The sun, the brightness, devouring darkness, fire surrounding me.
Especially this bit.
My end of time, all lethality.
And then back into the chorus again.
Flying to the unknown, a plane of forced melody.
One thing I should note is that the producer that I hired to make this video, I was super happy with the results. When she originally put it together, she sent everything over, and there wasn't any of the overlaid band footage on it at that particular point. And I'd said to her, like, we're going to try and pull together the band footage, but there's some complexities there in terms of timelines. Like, Ralf was busy, Morten was busy. It was especially when Morten could get into the studio, get everything set up and video everything. And the timelines ended up working pretty well. I actually got the footage from the band the week before we actually released the record and got the song out there. So it worked out pretty good. But I was really happy. Like, I think it looks really Hollywood and professional. She did a great job.
Push this envelope, blaze that trail. Fox ahead, the explorer prevails. Crown inside of the throne. One life defined by lethality. Push that button.
You know, one of the things I said to the producer as well when she was making the video was, I don't just want to show space. Like, this isn't really a song about space. So, you know, you can see here there's like medical, there's Arctic, there's all kinds of different types of exploration in here.
Take this pain, you take your God and my science will strain. The sacrificial ones will come.
Now, what you hear here is a callback to a previous section in the song where we kind of like slowed down, but switched it out to be a little bit different for the end of the song to kind of bring the song to a conclusion. And there's a killer Ralf screaming here you'll be able to hear in just a sec. It's funny, one of the things I love about working with Ralf is he comes up with some ideas, and sometimes the first time I hear them, I'm like, I'm not sure about that. And then it only takes a couple of listens, and then it really sits in, and now I can't imagine the song without it. There was actually a bit right at the end of Act 3, where he did this kind of like vocal part, and I messaged him on WhatsApp, and I was like, I'm not so sure about that. And he was like, just give it time. Give it time. He was right. So there we have it. That is Lethality. Thank you for watching. I hope this was interesting. You know, again, thank you so much to all of you for helping to spread the word about Baron Carta. We appreciate it. We see all the comments. We see everything that you're saying, and it's just absolute killer. So thank you. I'll see you soon.